I use cocaine.
The UFC have recently announced a pretty historic $7 billion deal with Paramount. That's almost as much money as the United States sends to. So, of course, we got the initial statement from Baldy himself. He says, the historic deal with Paramount and CBS is incredible for UFC fans and our athletes. For the first time ever, fans in the U.S. will have access to all UFC content without a pay-per-view model. So, it's about freaking time, man. Like, I think the pay-per-view model has been dead for a long time. I think it's been outdated for a very, very, very long time. It's about time. Let's keep reading this. Making it more affordable and accessible to view the greatest fights on a massive platform. This deal puts UFC amongst the biggest sports in the world. The exposure provided by the Paramount and CBS networks under this new structure is a huge win for our athletes and anyone who watches and loves this sport. So, I'm out of breath just reading that whole slop fucking chat GPT fucking Dana. I don't know if it's chat GPT, but so yeah, they announced this, and I just want to say I am aware that I'm a couple days late on this news, but I'm more interested in doing videos on DDP and Chimaev, and you guys have seemed to be fucking enjoying that because thank you guys so much for the views and the likes and the new subs on those videos. But yeah, Dana White announced the new deal with Paramount, the end of pay-per-views. So obviously this is the first really good thing about this is that no more pay-per-views. No more pay-per-views. We don't have to worry about paying $80 or, you know, if some of you criminals out there, like I would never do this, but there are some of you guys out there that definitely watch the cards illegally. That's disgusting to me because I would personally never do that. You know, you guys don't have to do that no more. Just get a $5 Paramount whatever or get a free trial or ask your grandma to cough up some credit card money from her retirement fund and, you know, let's buy a Paramount subscription. Let's go. So I think it's a great thing. No more pay-per-views. I think pay-per-views are outdated. I think UFC, well, it's really UFC and boxing, but even boxing is kind of going away with it with like the Zone and like all these other like, you know, platforms. They put stuff on ESPN as well. So I think the pay-per-view model is dead. It should be dead. And that's pretty much it. So I think this is the first really good thing about this, and it's a big deal. $7 billion for the UFC in 2025. I hope the UFC hits another prime because I would say, I mean, this year's been a bit up and down. It started off very, very, very rough, and now it's like picking up a little bit. But, you know, for them to get $7 billion is impressive. So I don't know whose cock Dana had to suck. Hopefully it wasn't Jones, but nonetheless, let's keep going. So you guys heard me read all that, and you guys were probably celebrating, and we're like, yes, let's go, no more pay-per-views. But now Dana's saying pay-per-views are not dead. Let's go.
The decision to largely shy away from pay-per-view, I know you said it may still be on the table, but stay over. I mean, how difficult of a decision was that to make?
It's not that it's on the table. I mean, the whole thing started going out, pay-per-view's dead. Pay-per-view's not dead. We're on pay-per-view on Saturday. And the pay-per-view business is still very much alive and well. But, you know, we were talking about potential pay-per-view with other streaming partners that we were talking to in the deal, but just not in this one. And you know, who knows what could happen. The beautiful thing about this business is every year something happens that I don't see coming. You know, a fight that you never thought would happen, or who knows. I mean, now, you know, we're doing boxing and we're doing MMA. Who knows what could happen, and anything could be a pay-per-view. Something could be a pay-per-view still.
So you guys saw that entire intro I did where you guys saw Dana said pay-per-views are no more and the pay-per-view model is outdated. And, well, that's what I said at least. I think pay-per-view is outdated, and I think it was about time that they finally moved away from that. But now Dana White is just saying, yeah, pay-per-views aren't dead. We have a pay-per-view coming up this weekend. Cool, but like, next year, when the deal starts, pay-per-views are going to be dead. Not in terms of... No, you know what? I do think pay-per-views are dead because realistically, who's going to want to cough up? I mean, there's a reason UFC does not put out the numbers anymore for their pay-per-views because it's shit. The numbers are shit. That's just the truth. When was the last time you saw, Alex Pereira versus freaking Ankalaev apparently sold 500K pay-per-views? No, they don't put those numbers out anymore because they are aware that pay-per-views are outdated. So how is he going to sit here and say, no, pay-per-views aren't dead, but it just so happens that we signed a deal where there's going to be no more pay-per-views. So pay-per-views are dead then, if you're going to move away from it yourself. I just think it's silly. And then him saying, oh, but something might come along. A big fight might come along. So if Makhachev versus Ilya, if that fight were to ever happen, is that going to be a pay-per-view? Like, it's just annoying, man. Like, the whole point of this is to completely get rid of pay-per-views. Not, but maybe we might do pay-per-views. No, man. So this is kind of, I don't like this. He's already going back on his word. He's already going back on what he was saying. It could be a case of, like, maybe he doesn't want to shit on pay-per-views since he literally has a couple more coming up this year. So he kind of doesn't want to fully shit on the pay-per-view model yet. You know how Dana is, right? Like, he'll glaze John Jones because he thinks John is going to fight Aspinall. And now John's not fighting Aspinall. Now we don't hear much about John Jones from Dana's mouth anymore. Now, I'm sure John Jones is inside Dana's mouth, but you get my point. But, yeah, I don't really like this kind of talk from Dana. You know, you go from saying no more pay-per-views to, actually, you know, if something big enough comes along, we might do it. Silly. But we have something that could either be seen as a positive or a negative. I'm worried about this one. Dana White says performance bonuses will be increased as part of the new rights deal. So on top of performance bonuses, fighter pay will also increase. So it's not just the performances, but fighter pay overall. We'll react to the performance bonuses video, and then we'll react to the fighter pay video, of course. Again, this could be a good and a bad thing. I think their performance bonuses increasing is good. I think fighter pay increasing. Let's just, you know.
What was the first part of the question?
Fighter pay.
Fighter pay.
Yeah. So do you look at it as like case by case on each fighter, or do you go, right, we're just going to up the base pay and maybe up the bonuses? How do you sort of figure out the fighter pay rising?
Yeah. These are. Listen, I'm not.
He's thinking in his head like, fuck, I have to pay these fucks more. Like, I mean, what the fuck? Let's keep going. I won't cut you off, Dana. Sorry.
Have any comments on that yet? Because we still got to get together and figure this stuff out. It's August. We have till January to figure all that stuff. But the low-hanging fruit that's easy to answer, bonuses are obviously going up. So, that'll be big. And just forget about the tide rising with all the other fighters. I mean, just the number that the bonuses bring to a fighter is, that's millions of dollars.
Just like the millions of dollars you offered to John Jones, but he didn't take it because he's a ducking coward. Anyways, so Dana White, he says that performance bonuses will be increased. I mean, that's good. I think that's good because it might incentivize fighters to get the knockout more than they already kind of do. But is that the case, though? Because, bonuses are still, they're at a decent number, right? Like performance bonuses and, performance of the night, knockout of the night, whatever the fuck. Those obviously, what is it, 10K or 5K? It's a pretty decent number, especially for an up-and-coming fighter. To get a bonus like that is really good. But then you still see fighters that just fight like shit. You still see guys that fight just like Lerone Murphy or Leon Edwards that just fight like these technical, boring point fighters. So this could be a good thing, but I don't know if fighters will really take advantage of it the way that you would think they would. But nonetheless, let's react to this now. Dana now saying that fighter pay will increase. So you saw in the first clip, he said, we got a lot of time to figure it out, but I guess in this clip, he's saying it will increase.
Listen, when you do a deal like this, we're talking about how good it is for the fans. It's obviously good for the company, but it's incredible for the fighters. We always had a model where you eat what you kill type thing with the pay-per-views. Mathematically, you just figure that out. It's going to be incredible. Since 2001, the day we bought this company, fighter pay has gone up. Every new deal that we've done, fighter pay has gone up, and obviously fighter pay will go up for this deal. It's a really, not just financially for the fighters, but the amount of exposure now that they're going to get. More people can tune in, for $12.99 than they could for $80+.
So, I mean, fighter pay going. We're going to hit on a couple points there. Actually, I'm going to start with him saying the exposure part of it. I'll start with that since that's the last thing he left off on. I think that's a positive, of course. And it does make me optimistic. Of course, me being an MMA YouTuber, if MMA and the UFC are doing good, I do good. I'm just saying, the views do good and, financially. So there is an incentive for me to want to see the UFC at its best. And I do think with that exposure on Paramount, it's not, no offense to Paramount, but it's not Netflix, right? And I kind of think that's why Paramount coughed up $7 billion was because they don't really have much. I don't think so. I'm not familiar with Paramount as a streaming service, so maybe they have like a lot of things, but I don't really think they do. I think they're not like on the level of HBO or Netflix or even Amazon or, you know, streaming services like that. But with that being said, I do think that the exposure will be good. Fighter pay going up, I don't know. I don't know. Obviously, like he said, you know, with the exposure could come more opportunities, right? That exposure. But then again, the UFC doesn't allow them to really have the big sponsors like they used to. You know, Demetrius Johnson was sponsored by Xbox. He can't get that no more. John Jones was sponsored by Nike. It's like the UFC, they're just so anti, like the idea that you had a fighter that was sponsored by Nike. It might have been, was it Jordan or Nike? I'm not sure. They're the same shit, but John Jones was sponsored by Nike, I'm pretty sure. And like Gatorade. It's like, that's cool. That's a good thing for you as a company and for him as a fighter, of course. But we don't really get a big cut of the money, so we don't want to do it. Anyways, that whole thing aside, I think fighter pay increasing is, I'm weary on it because fighters, some of them fight so awful. I'm sorry. Some of them just fight so awful and so shit. Do they need to really be paid more? When you look, let's break it down, right? When you look at a guy like Arman Sarukian, who already comes from money, is probably made, has he made $1 million yet in his UFC career? I'm not sure. Maybe he's probably made about $500K in total, right? Maybe. He's sitting out for about a year and a half, it seems, because he's paid so much. These guys are paid so well. Justin Gaethje is already threatening to retire if he doesn't get a title shot. Why? Because he's already a millionaire. Because fighter pay is already decent. It's already really good. Now, I understand for the guys at the top, it's really good. Maybe the guys like, let's say, a Mike Davis or a fucking Fares Ziam, maybe it's not the same. Maybe those guys, maybe fighter pay should increase for those guys, but should it though? Would they have the same hunger if they were paid $100K every fight? $200K every fight? Does Renato Moicano have the same hunger now that he's probably close to $1 million? I don't think he's a millionaire, but he might be close. He's probably made good money in his last few fights. And now you see he's lost his last 2 fights. Now, obviously, one was Islam Makhachev, but Dariush schooled you, man. It's like, this is what I'm saying. Some of these guys, the inactivity is ridiculous. I mean, some of these guys have no problem sitting out for a year and a half. So if you're telling me they're not paid enough, how can they afford to sit out for a year and a half? I don't really get it, man. I don't really get it. Oh, the fighter pay is not good enough. Bro, we ain't seen fucking Leon Edwards. He fought once a year. We ain't seen Strickland in a while. And he's getting all fat and whatever during camp, or in between camp, excuse me. This is what I'm saying. Fighter pay is not good enough, but we see Movsar Evloev once a year. There's no activity with these guys, but then fighter pay is not good enough? I don't know. And if you increase it, is that going to help things or hurt things? Oh, I just made $1 million in my last fight. Imagine Arman Sarukian gets paid $1 million in his next fight. We ain't going to see that motherfucker for 5 years. I don't know. I think the fighter pay thing is always tricky because really it comes down to there's a lot of inactivity and there's a lot of shit fighters. And do I want to see the inactive shit fighters get paid millions of dollars just because, well, the UFC is making they just signed a 7 point whatever fucking $1 billion deal. I don't know. I think fighter pay is always going to be a tricky thing because fighters are just tricky people to deal with, it seems, and it is what it is. We still got a bit to cover here. So something else I don't really like from this, Dana White says the UFC plans to hold 4 big events per year. What? Let's listen to him say it out of his own bald mouth, but I'm confused by this.
What can you tell us about how much the UFC will be on CBS, linear TV, with the country watching?
Yeah, it's looking like we're going to do 4 big events a year. And, we're talking about doing a fight at the White House next year on the 4th of July, the 250th anniversary of America. So imagine a massive fight on the lawn of the White House on CBS.
What can you tell us about?
I just don't like that at all. What do you mean 4 big events? You're not fucking WWE. We got WrestleMania and the Royal Rumble. Like what? I don't like this at all, man, because the UFC already has a problem like doing big events. The UFC already kind of under-deliver at times. I'm not going to fully complain because they have swung things back. Like UFC 319 is one of the best cards of the year. There's been some great cards this year on paper, that is. No Anthony Smith. But 4 big events, how are you going to space that out? How are you going to... And then are there going to be fighters that only want to fight on the big events? And they already have problems like spacing things out. Spacing out big names, big fights. Again, I just don't like this 4 big events. Like, are you just going to save all the good fights for those 4 events? Are we going to save fights like Ilya Islam for one of those 4? Or Jones Aspinall for one of those 4? Is every other pay-per-view just going to be like a weaker pay-per-view than one of the big 4? I don't like this, man. I'm worried about this. So I think this is one of the bad things about this deal is that this whole 4 big events thing, man. What? I'm not a fan of this. I'm really not a fan of this. I'm not sure what it's going to entail, but I don't know, man. I don't like it. I just don't like the idea of the UFC just like specifically. It would just seem like they would just try to make 4 events a year the best events. So then is every other pay-per-view other than those 4 just going to be like good or like just mid? I don't know, man. I'm not a fan of this. So then we got this that came out. UFC plans to expand the Apex to accommodate 5K to 10K additional fans. I like this. I think this is a great, I think this is a really great thing, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't know why it's taken them about 10 fucking years since the pandemic, since the Apex was built, for them to finally do this. Like, I don't know why it's taken. You're a $1 billion company. Even before this Paramount deal, you've been a $1 billion company. Why is it taking you so long to just add a few extra bleachers? I don't really get that, but finally it seems like they're expanding the Apex, so it took for them to get $7 billion extra dollars that they already have. They already have billions of dollars, but it took them $7 billion extra dollars to say, yeah, maybe we should add a few bleachers to the Apex. I'm not sure. I just think it's silly that it's taking them this long, but it's cool. It's cool. So I haven't really seen much people talk about this, though, so maybe a lot of people just don't know, but I saw this tweet and I thought it was very, very, very interesting. So I just want to end with this. I mean, if you see here, UFC fans had to pay. Well, UFC fans in America who paid legally, who watched legally, had to pay $1,160 a year. And in 2026, I don't know why Conor McGregor is in the picture, like as if he's going to fight next year. He might. Hey, that freaking him hitting the pads, he's been looking kind of shit. I mean, kind of good. No, he's been looking shit, let's be honest. But $120 a year is going to be the price. $1,160 a year is insane. That's insane. Let's just, I think this deal is a good thing. I think this deal is a good thing and a bad thing. I think there's positives and negatives. Just like, if you were to get with fucking some prostitute, there's positives and negatives, just like anything in life. So that's all I got for you guys today. Like and sub, comment, share, blah, blah, blah. Let me know you guys' thoughts on this whole deal. Peace.